I'm Bruce Apar, and you're watching Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. Yeah, I had to use my peripheral vision. Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog is brought to you by the Penny Saver and our parent company, Chase Media Group. And the Frank part of Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog, Frank J. Rich, who usually is sitting right by me, cannot be here for this show, and we look forward to his being back next time. And we always like to remind you that you can also see past episodes of Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you type in Town Link TV or NCN, that's Nancy, Kathy, Nancy, Local, NCN Local TV, you'll find that the Frank Talks shows will just pop right up and you can watch them anytime on demand, as we like to say. Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog is a regular show on this channel weekly or on YouTube anytime, and we like to bring you interesting people who are making a significant positive contribution to our communities. And if you have somebody you'd like to suggest as a guest, or maybe even yourself, you can just email me at bapar, B-A-P-A-R, at chasemediagroup.com. And we want to welcome, of course, our guest for this show, and that is Bernard Thombs. Bernie, right?
Yes, thank you.
As you like. And we're going to be talking with Bernie Thombs today about the Juneteenth celebration that takes place in White Plains on June 6th, right?
And 8th.
And June 8th, right? June 6th is the festival portion, is that right?
June 6th is actually what happened.
Oh, the dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the dinner at Doubletree?
At Doubletree.
Right.
In Terrytown.
And June 8th is the festival.
June 8th is the festival.
Right.
At Eastview School.
Right.
In White Plains.
At the Eastview School, right,
Yes.
in White Plains. And, of course, we should start, Bernie, talking about what Juneteenth is and the significance of Juneteenth, and the very, it's a rich history, of course. It's also an unfortunate history because it deals with slavery, albeit the end of slavery.
Right.
Right. So I just wanted to chat because I was looking up the background of it, and it even up to this day, it's had its ups and downs, right? Juneteenth celebration, and it originated in Texas.
Yes, it originated in Texas, actually in Galveston. Juneteenth is a celebration noting the end of slavery, but a particular time of the end of slavery.
Right.
Actually, 2 years after after slavery had been abolished, there were still slaves in Texas.
Right.
And they were being managed under the same type of conditions that they had been during slavery. And the federal government found that this was the case and sent soldiers to inform them that they were indeed free at that point.
Right. And so that's June 19th, and that's where the name,
right, Juneteenth comes from.
Juneteenth comes from.
Correct.
But also, what I learned in researching today's show, that over the years it faded. Juneteenth celebrations, right, faded because of, for various reasons.
Yes.
I mean, I guess financing, or maybe even the social situation at the time, and also because of historic reasons. It came back, I guess, like in the 60s and 70s when there was actually civil unrest, right? There.
Right, and when I think during the 60s and 70s when there was a large push for identity, for being black or African American,
right,
within the African American communities, that's when we really started to have it. And I think that the mindset about the war and the fact that we could talk in our communities about our conditions.
Right.
And we're talking about our conditions, and that's why it started to resurge.
Right. And so in White Plains, that festival commemoration, let's say, is now 10 years old. Is that right? It started.
It will be 10 years old
right.
next year. And interestingly enough, it was started by some community leaders, in addition to the mayor.
Mayor Joe Delfino.
Mayor
at
Joe
the time?
Delfino,
Yeah, right.
of White Plains.
Right.
And he was very active in allowing the city to look at this community, the African American community, as a vital part
right.
of the city, and not wanting to have them feel that they were missing out in the resurgence of that town. So he pushed really hard to get people together to put this parade and festival on.
Right, and I know Mayor Delfino is still very active. You see him at so many different events. I mean, he really continues to contribute a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
To not just White Plains, but all of Westchester. And I want to mention his daughter, Cynthia Rubino, who works at Berkeley College. She also is a great community volunteer and citizen. Yeah.
She absolutely has been. As a matter of fact, she was very instrumental in partnering with us for the past several years, not only in providing us with financial support,
right.
but also students to participate in the committee.
Right, yeah. So that family in general is a great role model for people to get involved and to make a difference, which is what we like to talk about on this show. And what are some of the things, Bernie, that do take place, let's say, at the festival? I know, again, in reading about it, there's an emphasis on maybe certain types of food, and even there was, interestingly, a certain kind of soda pop that I guess is... it's sort of the favored beverage.
Yeah, the red soda.
Yeah, the red soda
is a
strawberry soda pop. That's
yeah,
what
it's a strawberry
soda
pop, but it's also referred to as the red soda.
Okay.
It's one of the key elements of Juneteenth, but it's not made in all Juneteenth celebrations. So here in White Plains, I say across the county, we may not have that.
Right.
But if you go out to Texas, where it actually is very prominent, you would find it there.
Okay. Yeah. And then again, reading from this entry, the history of Juneteenth, it says meats such as lamb, pork, and beef. Again, this is historically, it's not necessarily still the case, but that they were always featured.
Traditional African American cuisine is definitely what you'll always find at any Juneteenth celebration.
Right.
Yes.
And what about clothing? Is there any certain form of dress to signify what you're commemorating?
Well, often participants like to wear garments that may remind you of African clothing,
right.
African motif, or patterns you will find often at these celebrations.
Right. And again, this because it originated in Texas, it's not surprising they say one of the activities, featured attractions, was rodeos. Mentions rodeos. Some people will like to pronounce it like me. Fishing, barbecuing, baseball, or I guess were some of the featured attractions.
There are a lot of activities where these types of things are possible. Obviously, in White Plains, we don't have a place to fish,
right.
But we do have often, and we have had in the past, the Black Cowboys Association come in and bring their horses in. So yes, we've had them in our parade actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about entertainment? Is there entertainment that's scheduled for this year?
Oh yes, there's all sorts of entertainment.
Yeah.
This year, our focus is on trying to highlight the drum as it has been used in the past as a way to give messages.
Summon people.
Right,
so
to
speak.
summon and
right.
Transfer messages out.
Right.
And so we look to highlight that this year by having not only drum and bugle corps, but also individual drummers and storytellers.
Right.
We're going to have face painting for kids and
Right.
youth, and various types of activities where they can compete and win prizes.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and we should just mention, Bernie, just for the sake of perspective, let's say, on your background, that your profession is in security, right? And
I like to say I'm a technologist.
okay.
Okay.
Right.
And I work in the security industry.
Right.
I run a business in Westchester County, but my business expands across the country. I provide security information management to federal housing authorities and municipalities across the country.
Right.
Those that deal with HUD funds and also
The housing authority.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
Right.
and community block grant funds that need security implementations in place. I don't install cameras. I design
Right.
security systems where they're to be placed
Ah.
and how they're to be used,
Right.
and also manage the implementation of them and work with police departments and municipalities to administer them.
Right. Now, didn't that, in a sense, play a role in the horror that you know, the horror that just took place in Boston? That was it. Security cameras, or I know there were cameras that helped them identify the suspects, right?
Yes, across the country,
Right.
across the globe.
Right.
Security cameras are being used more in day-to-day policing and public safety,
Right.
and it's growing and will continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yes.
The word before you helped me with the word assimilator when my brain wasn't kicking in on that, but the word that I was thinking of in Boston, and I like to point this out because I'm somebody who really cherishes the meaning of words and that they're used properly. The enormity, and enormity is an interesting word. Understandably, it's often misapplied. It does not mean large. It means an absolutely awful, very destructive event of of enormous scale. And unfortunately, the Boston bombing qualifies for that. Certainly, it was an event where enormity applies. So how did you get involved, or in terms of, you're the co-chair of the Juneteenth, right,
Yes.
celebration. Is it something that goes back like to your parents, where they were involved? Where does your interest come from, and when did it start?
Well, my actual interest in the Juneteenth efforts come from my association with the African American Men of Westchester, which is an organization that's been in existence for 25 years here in Westchester County. And we provide social services and educational services to youth and adults across the county.
Right. And so, and you were involved in that for many years.
Yes,
Right.
I've been involved in that for many years.
Right.
And through that, we've dedicated support and resources to all types of organizations across the county. And the Juneteenth Committee in White Plains was one of the organizations that we provided support for.
Okay.
And so each of our members are involved in various associations across the county to provide them with services and support as an adjunct to what we do as an organization.
And you're talking about the organization being the African American Men of Westchester. Right. Okay. And then for the first time this year, as far as the Juneteenth celebration goes, you're holding an awards dinner, right? The first annual awards dinner.
This is our first annual awards dinner. We are recognizing individuals who have been real good contributors and real heartfelt contributors throughout the community.
Right.
And this started with looking at one person in particular, and that is the executive director of White Plains Housing Authority, Mr. Mac Carter.
Right.
In addition to Mr. Carter, we'll be recognizing Mayor Delfino, who was actually one of the co-founders of the Juneteenth celebration.
Right.
And as you had mentioned, long-standing activist in the community, in addition to a politician. He's
a long-standing, upstanding citizen.
There you go.
Right.
Yes, he definitely is that.
Right. And then also you have two other honorees.
We're recognizing Earl Graves, who's the publisher and creator of the Enterprise magazine,
Black Enterprise,
which is a Black Enterprise
very
magazine,
hugely successful publisher.
very successful publication. And also, Mr. Graves is a person who lives here in the county.
Right.
In addition, we're also going to give an award to the Delta's Greek sorority.
Delta Sigma, right?
Yeah, Delta Sigma.
Yes.
And they are having their 100-year anniversary. And they've been in existence for a long time. And they are here. They have a chapter. They have several chapters here in Westchester County.
Right.
And they are amongst those organizations that really give back to the community through mentorship and educational grants and health programs. And this is an all-women's organization.
So it's a service sorority, is what it sounds. I know my daughter, Alyssa, who went to SUNY Oneonta, was in a service sorority up there, and they do great work. They do fundraising.
Right.
They volunteer in the community, helping people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So those are the 4 honorees, and in fact, the first 4 honorees at Juneteenth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there's going to be a dinner on June
6th at the Doubletree Hotel, starting at 7 p.m.
Right. And how would somebody purchase tickets or find out more information about that dinner?
You can find out more information and purchase tickets actually online at the Juneteenth Committee website, which is wpjuneteenth.com.
Right. Okay. And how many people in the June 8th Heritage Festival do you anticipate will participate?
Well, I'll tell you, in the past we've had up to 20,000 participants come into the city to watch our parade and festival.
Right.
So we've been very lucky.
Right.
We get people not only from the local community of White Plains, but from the greater part of Westchester County and outer parts, even across the Tappan Zee and down into Harlem. They come up to watch our parade.
For the White Plains?
Right.
But what about in New York City? Is there a separate celebration in New York City?
There is a celebration in New York City in Harlem. It doesn't happen at the same time. Not all Juneteenth celebrations happen at the same time. As there is a celebration that takes place here in Peekskill, which is a Juneteenth celebration also.
Right.
And they have a parade. And that generally takes place a week after our festival.
Right. And that's still taking place in Peekskill.
Yes, it is.
Which is significant because the Peekskill celebration, the annual summer event, could not take place this year. So it's good to hear that Juneteenth is still on in Peekskill.
Yes.
And you were saying, Bernie, before we went on the air, that unfortunately the parade cannot take place. The Juneteenth parade, that usually is part of all of this, this year cannot take place because of funding, right?
Right. It actually runs approximately $40,000 to $50,000 to put on the parade and festival.
Wow.
And we are short due to the different economy problems that are taking place.
Right.
We've been affected by that also. So our fundraising efforts have been limited. And this year we decided to take a step back, look at our 10th year anniversary coming up next year, and focus all of our efforts at building our parade for next year. But we will have the festival this year.
So, so the 10th anniversary actually is next year.
Yes, the 10th anniversary is next year.
Right. And so what year then was the first one? Was it 2004 or
2000? The group came together in 2003. I believe that the first activity was in 2004.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. And how has the event, the White Plains event, changed over the years? I mean, have you been involved with it from the beginning? Or?
No, I haven't been involved in it from the beginning. However, I did come along at least about 5 years now. I've been involved in the activity. And the way that it has changed is we have more community participation. In the past, it had been more so stewarded by the city of White Plains. And now, for the past 2 to 3 years, the community, the individuals in the community, the ministers, the homeowners, the individual businessmen have come together as a group in order to put this together on a yearly basis now.
Right. And do you or somebody, not necessarily you in particular, but somebody who's on the committee, other people involved, do you check out other Juneteenth celebrations which do take place across the country, right? I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, isn't there some kind of organization or some connection between them where I thought I was reading about online that there's maybe a loose right.
There's a loose association
right.
For the different organizations that are out there.
Right.
The types of banners and logos that are used can be seen from group to group, but there are definitely differences from municipality to municipality, from state to state, as to how each group likes to operate, and even at what time they may have their parade and festival.
Right. And I believe also, isn't it the case in Texas where this has become a state holiday?
Yes, yeah. In Texas it's a state holiday.
I mean, are there any efforts in other states to have the government, the state government, do the same, to declare it a state holiday?
No, there hasn't been a real push for that, although the celebration itself has been growing in various cities, where individuals may have lived in a city or a location where they had it and they move. They'll generally take that along with them and say, you know, I'd like to have that here in my town.
Right.
And so they'll push to have it. But at the present time, there is not a national movement to have a Juneteenth celebration recognized by the government.
Right. Okay. Right. And what about because again, it deals with easily one of the most notable parts of American history, tying into school curriculum. In other words, to your knowledge, how is Juneteenth treated in history lessons in school, let's say, or is it to a great extent taught and talked about?
Well, I tend to think that our history lessons are less and few in comparison to maybe when we were in school. But during our celebration, we have an essay contest.
Oh, okay.
And that essay contest, we ask the school system. We actually work with the commissioner of schools, and we ask them to get to all of their schools this particular contest. And I believe that many of the school teachers in those schools will have a special class on the issues of slavery in America, and ask the students to actually write their thoughts about those curriculum classes that they have gone through.
Okay, and I'm curious. Let's say in your family, when your children were growing up and at a certain age, is slavery something that you would talk to them about?
Yes, and the conversation of slavery is a difficult one.
Yeah.
Not only amongst different races in this country, black to white.
Right.
It's a difficult conversation for African Americans also.
Yeah, I would think so.
And the reason that it is difficult is because of the hardship and the toil that our ancestors have gone through here. But also, there's a lot of history that we actually miss out on because of the slavery and the types of things that took place. We don't get to hear and haven't got to hear the real stories that have taken place. So it only comes through reading or taking college classes that you may really get some understanding of what are the true conditions that African Americans and Africans went through during slavery.
Right.
And so in my household, being that my wife was an educator, we were definitely very much so into reading about history and presenting our history to our children, and having them understand that it was a difficult time. It may be things that people don't want to hear because it's so difficult, and everyone feels responsible. But it's definitely something that we pushed. And one of the big issues is shame.
Right.
We deal with shame in this country in a hard way, and anyone dealing with shame is less likely to want to confront it.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the things that we have as an issue, and it's hard to discuss this because of the shame about it. So when people, whether they be black or white, begin to hear or see or listen to anything about slavery, the issue of shame comes into play, and we somewhat shut down over it. During the 70s and 80s, the program Roots was
just in my head. I'm thinking Roots, yes.
Was really an eye-opener for many, not only African Americans, but those who were not African Americans in this country.
Right.
And it's one of the programs that people refer back to when they think about slavery. But just keep in mind that that was still a very painted view of what slavery was.
Do you feel Roots was sanitized? Was it a sanitized history?
Well, I could say from all of the reading and all of the study that I've done about slavery, I wouldn't say that it's sanitized, but it had to be presented in the way that it was presented in order for a mass group of people to be able to accept what they were seeing.
Right.
All right. We all have some understandings of the horrors of war. We don't like to look at those pictures of the Holocaust, but they're definitely along the same lines.
Yes.
How many of us turn our face when we see those pictures, and that's a difficult thing for us to take into consideration.
Oh no, I mean, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I mean, I would imagine that that part of maybe what you did impart to your children is how slavery shapes you forever, really, doesn't it? I mean, it influences you, who you are.
It definitely, well, I can say this much, that one of the issues about slavery that is a real problem for many African-American youth is that because of slavery, our historical understanding of our roots has been disrupted. And because of that, I think many youth are not able to understand where they should be in their life cycle. And that's one of the things that history brings to you.
Right.
History not only tells you about what the past was, but it identifies for you how those who came before you operated, what they did during a certain time in their life, and how they progressed, and what changes they made in their lives in order to succeed.
Right.
When you don't have that history, you miss out on understanding where should I be in this cycle of life.
Right.
And that's a big issue for us.
Hence the immortal quote by Georges Santayana, which is, those, paraphrasing it, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. Right. Obviously in the negative sense is what he meant. Anyhow, Bernie, this has really been fascinating and important to let people know about Juneteenth. You can check out the website, which is wpjuneteenth.com for the White Plains Juneteenth celebration, and that'll give you all the information. And we want to thank our guest, Bernie Thombs. Bernie, thank you very much for being with us today. And I also want to remind everyone that we thank our CEO at Chase Media Group, Carla Chase, as well as Frank J. Rich, for putting us up every week. And thank you for watching. And remember, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. Thank you.